Agents Podcast.
Today's guest caught my attention via email where when they had asked, his team asked about being on our podcast, brought up the term industry group think. And I responded and said, "Can you please explain what that means?" And the definition from Lance's perspective was getting away from or getting out of that lane that we're all stuck in, which is listening to our brokers, our coaches, the way it's always been done, and not paying enough attention to the consumer. And man, that one spoke to me, and I jumped out of my chair and said, "Let's book this damn thing and let's talk." And so, I'm excited for today's guest, Lance Pendleton, who is a industry veteran. You've had a lot of experience, which you'll talk about here in a second. You've since founded your own coaching platform called Pre-TSD, and I'd love to hear kind of where that comes from. But Lance, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and let's hear about who the hell you are and kind of what led you are to where you are today.
Thanks, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I really appreciate you not only responding to my email, but jumping out of your chairs. It's been a long time since I made anybody jump out of their chair. But yeah, no, I'm super psyched to have this conversation with you because it's a conversation I'm super passionate about, and one that I genuinely feel like if we don't continue to have right now, we're heading down a path of insolvency in the world of real estate, and it's a little scary. But my background, I worked for one of the largest, I was the I was the chief innovation officer for one of the largest Sotheby's Realty affiliates in the US. I then moved over and was the national head of agent development at Compass. I oversaw 30,000 agents in their growth and development process, and then decided at a certain point in time I wanted to help in a different way. So I work with solo entrepreneurs and with entrepreneurs in general, particularly ones that struggle with prioritization, organization, time management, impulse control, stuff like that. All the things that are around sort of that ADHD cycle. And I went into that, and I called my company Pre-TSD because we all know what PTSD is, but I suffered my entire life with pre-TSD because I am constantly anxious about shit that hasn't happened yet, stuff that's out in the world that my job is to get ahead of the problems before anybody else does. So long story short, I've been in and around the game for a long time. And one thing that I've noticed is that the way that we continue to operate within the industry currently is not only what's leading us into the problems that we're currently facing, but we now have almost doubled down on it. It's like we've learned nothing in the past year with all the stuff that's happened other than, hey, there was a problem. It was over here. Great. We got sued. We lost. Let's shift that problem now into another area and see what happens. It's like that doesn't really seem to work, but
Yeah.
you know,
So I'm gonna rewind for a second on a more of a personal note. What were you doing that led you to Compass, to led you to the real estate industry?
So, I worked for Apple many, many years ago. My background's in behavioral psychology. I loved the idea of helping professionals in and around the sales industry understand how do you better connect to people, rehumanizing relationships, understanding how to develop and foster trust based off of true human connection. And I fell into the real estate world accidentally. So I technically am a licensed real estate agent still. I don't actively sell because I don't want to, compete against the people that I'm working with and I help support. But I sold real estate for a period of time, went into it, realized that I really was enjoying more working with the agents to help them overcome blockers to their own growth, development, and happiness. And then worked my way up through there into that Sotheby's affiliate. And I landed at Compass because for me, I love the challenge of an opportunity. At the time that I joined, there was only 6,000 agents. And it was a growth process to see how do we help some of the best agents in the country. And it was, it was an amazing experience and a really cool and wild ride. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had in all of it.
Awesome. And do you just exclusively work with the real estate industry?
I don't just exclusively work with the real estate industry. I work with, they're the lion's share of who I work with, but I work with entrepreneurs in multiple different industries, particularly ones that are in sort of investment finance. And again, not finance bros, but like people who are entrepreneurs in deals, merger acquisition, and things like that.
Got it. Got it. So let's get right to it. And I'd love to hear your perspective on this because as you can, you and I have never met, and you can kind of tell where my niche is, right? And that lends right into this conversation. So I talk about this a lot because I talk about just the antiquated nature of our industry, which prohibits people from innovating and doing the new things. And they always kind of stick to, one of the most famous phrases in real estate is back to the basics. We got to get back to the basics. And there is something, there's some value to that. But I'd like to know, the question I want to ask you is, why do you feel like this industry gets so stuck and almost like sucked back? Every time they take 10 steps forward, boom, they get to come back again. And which then, stops that progress and growth. Why do you think that is in this industry?
Because the industry doesn't want you to actually progress at all. You have to, at a 30,000 foot view, right? You have to acknowledge that at a certain point in time, any industry that hasn't truly changed or evolved since like the Reagan administration, there has to be a driving factor behind that. And so the number one reason is every aspect of this industry is designed and set up to keep itself as complicated as possible. So if you look at how it's laid out, any real estate transaction, there's like 12 different people involved in it. You got mortgage people, title people, escrow people, the agents, the brokerages, the inspectors. Like there's a dozen people involved in a transaction. Every one of those people wants to keep their portion as complex as possible because they don't want to foster simplicity for the consumers. They don't want to foster any type of change in any of that because that's how they make their money. It's their livelihood. So that's problem number one. Problem number two.
And but before you get to two,
yeah,
is who is they in your mind? Coaches, brokers, leaders?
Everybody. It is the coaches, it's the brokers, and it's the leaders. And I'll give you the perfect example, which is sort of, again, leads into that problem number two. Anybody listening to the sound of my voice that's an agent, ask yourself this question. How many agent panels have you attended in your time in real estate? My guess would be what? Dozens and dozens of them, 3 agents on a stage holding a microphone. I made my millions in doing this. Okay, cool. Ready? How many consumer panels have you attended?
Ooh.
I'll wait. None. None. Why? Because they don't want you to. That's the problem. If you really think about this, our job is to be out in the world working with consumers, yet at no point in time do they ever want you learning from these people. Why? Because what you're going to find out, which is what I do for a living, I talk to thousands of consumers. It's my job. It's how I help people, right? What I've learned over and over again is the perception of what the agent does is completely misaligned, right? What the need is completely misaligned. And yet, what do we keep hearing? Oh, do your touches. Did you get your 32 touches? Did you get 32? Yeah, you got your 32. You got me. Did you send value? Do you have value? Did you send value? If you send something, it has to have value. What's your value? If you take a human being and tell them 72 times a year, do you have value? Did you send your value? Did you show value? What are you subliminally telling them? You have no value.
Yeah, you suck.
You suck. Yeah. And by the way, foster more dependency on me because, by the way, your problem statement that you just said there is who's to blame? All of them, because each one is designed. Look at coaching. Coaching as an industry in real estate is exactly the same as the healthcare industry. It's symptom treatment. Why? Because if they actually treated the cause, you wouldn't need them anymore. So they're not invested in actually helping you think about how do I better prevent you from ever having to deal with this problem again. Their job is the script, the playbook, the blah, blah. It's all this something or other about the next quick fix program that they're going to show you or the perfect script or the perfect, it's just, and that's why you said it perfectly. It's the same tired bullshit from Willie Loman's era back in the Death of a Salesman, projects. It's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, does this, and I'm kind of like you, very agnostic to the industry, work with everybody, don't have a flag planted. The initials GK, his company, is that kind of one of the culprits here is that they build these platforms where I don't know this for certain, but I'm pretty sure that maybe their number one revenue stream is from said coaching internally.
Yeah. So it's not their number one, but I will say it is a major cash cow because, again, keep in mind, there's no money in brokerage. There isn't. The margins on brokerage are terrible. I think it's like 8% right now. It's why you see certain brokerages right now in panic mode with what's happening in the industry market, and so without picking on anybody as an individual thing, we'll use that as a reference point. you're talking about a $10 million a year business model. $10 million a year right off of what? A recycled program of doing certain things in a fashion that doesn't change. It's all based off the same formulaic playbook. Digitally harass the living shit out of people, right? My open house, my just sold, my new listing, the hot new color to paint your front door in spring, the best place to go to dinner, and for what? Talk to consumers. Nobody's encouraging anybody to go have a conversation with a consumer to understand, what do you want? What do you need? How can I be helpful to you?
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. So if I'm listening to this and maybe I'm taking a quick look in the mirror to say, oh shit, like I am with one of those coaching platforms and they are constantly telling me, because I struggle with this. And I'll just use myself as an example because again, I do coach and teach on social, but as a practitioner, not as what I would consider an expert. I don't think that exists.
Right.
And so I'm the person standing on stages all day long saying, stop doing what you just said. Stop just listed, just sold. Like I closed another deal. I won another award, all the things, because this is why I would argue the industry has the worst consumer sentiment in the history of its industry right now, because we've been taught how to do this all wrong. Same thing. Like when our neighbor opens up Instagram, they see puppy dogs and cooking and things that interest them. When we as an industry open up Instagram, we see more realtors. So we think more realtors, or we think our consumers seeing the same thing.
Right.
And then it just leads us down this path of just massive spam. And now we're hated. We're vilified. We are the used car salesman of the world. Um, okay, how do we overcome this? I've got my niche that I talk about to it. I think you talk about it on a broader scale. So
Right.
I want to learn, man. Even if nobody listens to this, I'm going to learn something here today.
Well, I want to learn from you too, because social media is not one of my strong points. But I will say right off the bat, you talk about social media, you just made an amazing point, right? Agents will intentionally, actually unintentionally, put themselves into a depressive state by trolling social media. Why? Because what are they looking at? 90% of their feed is what?
Them, their
Them.
their peers, their colleague. Yeah.
We are drinking our own bathwater constantly. So if you want to do, the first piece of advice I would give anybody that wants to begin to change the system and change how they feel: unfollow, unfriend, and delete every one of those people that you have on social media that's in the real estate business.
Yeah.
Watch how much lighter and better you will feel, and actually how much better your social media gets when you start seeing a little bit more of the humanity and reality of it. So that's one.
Yeah.
The second big component in a lot of this is people need to understand there are two different things that I teach people when I work with them. You have brand recognition, which we're great at as an industry. We have no problem, right, in telling people I'm in real estate. It's Tuesday, I'm in real estate. It's Thursday, I'm still in real estate. There's a pie. You want to pick up a pie from me? Why? Because I'm in real estate. Like, I'm with you. We have no problem with brand. The focus should be on human-based marketing. Human-based marketing is the connection point in which I'm able to spend time with people to develop and nurture a relationship that fosters trust, not on the fact that I can buy and sell a house with you. First major step. The second piece of it is to help people understand and to change this culture that exists in the business that we're in sales. We are not in sales. We have never been in sales. We are not in sales. So we need to stop applying sales tactics and sales behaviors to an industry that has nothing to do with sales. I don't buy and sell houses, and I can prove it every single time. You ready? If I take the price of a house and I put it really low, Jeff, what's going to happen to it?
Say that again.
If I take the price of a house, right? I put it on the market and I make the price really low, what's going to happen to it?
It's going to sell, man. It's going to get offers.
What the hell does that have to do with me?
Yep.
Nothing, right? Yep. My job is to be, and I use this term a lot with people that I work with, I am a Sherpa. I am a guide. My job is to help you on a mountain climb. The best mountain climbers in the world always take a Sherpa. Why? Because they need that partnership, because no two climbs are ever the same. Yeah. My job is to help you understand what to do when there's inclement weather. My job is to help you understand what to do in terms of a packing list. My job is to help you understand what to do if we hit a terrain change. We're in it together. I am a partner. But real estate should be consultancy, advisory, and advocacy. That's what real estate should be. This nonsensical crap that exists, all my touches and all my emails and my automations and all this stuff, it is the literal cancer that just permeates our entire business. And to your point, and this was a really interesting study, I got to go back and pull it. There was a global study of trusted professions. It's a global study. real estate ranked below prostitution.
I've heard that. Yeah.
It's like, why? Well, because in prostitution, you know what you're getting. It's a relationship. It's a deal. You're paying for something, and you know what the outcome is going to be. You're paying them to leave.
Yeah.
In real estate, the trust isn't there because of all of the things that are still kept behind the veil. It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. It's a very interesting. But the wild thing is that I just don't feel like we're anywhere close to evolving from this.
We had such an opportunity to evolve. The problem really sits now that unfortunately the lawsuits are going to force us to evolve. And it's going to create an unfortunate situation where the evolution is going to be a lot of it's going to be out of our control, in my opinion.
So again, I look at this through a very specific lens, and yours is definitely broader than mine. But I hear, and obviously being a part of a group like Lab Code Agents, where I'm seeing all of the conversations that are happening, and there was one actually recently where an agent was effectively bitching and shared an image of a text thread between him and another agent, and how this agent effectively said, hey, give me a call. The agent responded, I'd rather text. Well, I prefer a call. Let me know when I can call you. And he's like, okay, it'll be Monday. And this was like on a Thursday. And then the old school agent was like, okay, bye. Like, if you're not gonna, and it's like, and he came to Labcoat to chastise this agent to say, you need to be better. And then if he actually got piled on, like, dude, like, you need to evolve. Not everybody wants a phone call. That is such a basic representation of this industry. And when it comes to the concept of, as we're discussing here, which is, understanding your consumer, I don't know, man. There are days when I'm sad for the industry, because I think that the evolution of this industry is going to be like a, a, a very stark turnover from, I'm just going to use this loosely, the baby boomer to the Gen Z. And it's going to go from the skill set to be a successful real estate agent is to be a better marketer.
Yeah. I mean, in your opinion, what do you think is, when you say a better marketer, what does that look like?
It goes back to connection with consumer, because and I don't say this because it's my business. It's become my business because of what I believe, which is that social media is literally going to be almost one A, two, three, four, and five of the top marketing strategies over the traditional things, mailers, billboards, radio, TV, all those things. And agents do not understand how to connect with other human beings on social, because they were taught by some coach who looked at social as a vehicle to sell, as a vehicle to do all of the things they've been teaching for the last 30 years, when they never stopped to look at social. And I don't want to make this all about social, but they didn't stop to look at it and say, wait a minute, what is social? It's a social connection tool. It's now entertainment. It's a place where people go to get validated. It's where they go for emotional elevation. They don't go there to buy shit, right? And they certainly don't go there to buy homes. And so, I don't know. I guess my question to you is that what do you think is going to happen? Because I just don't think agents can grasp that concept of what value really is, because again, they think, well, my job is to read a contract. My job is to guide you. My job is to show you homes. My job is to, sell your home as fast as possible for the top dollar, all these things. But they do such a poor job of representing themselves. It's just like we're just digging the hole deeper and deeper.
For sure. And look, there is light for me at the end of the tunnel. I had a great coach of mine one time when he was like, he asked me, he said straight up, like, how are things going? I was like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And without even blinking, he went, yeah, sometimes that's the train. I was like, touche. That's a good response. But so I want to give a little bit of positive light at the end of the tunnel on this. One thing I know for certain is that the folks that I've had the pleasure of working with, and I've got a program called the Sherpa Model program. It just helps people at basics. I literally give you a buyer's guide. I give you a seller's guide. It's just stuff that I'm giving you to be able to build confidence. So the first thing is we got to be better at building confidence again in who we are and what we do. Look, real estate agents, there are some fantastic agents out there that I adore that are wonderful human beings that bust their asses in one of the hardest industries in the world. There is no doubt. But we need to demand more of our brokerages. We need to demand more of our brokerages, and here's why. And if you're an agent listening to the sound of my voice, please marinate on this for a second. A brokerage works for you. You don't work for the brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, there are brokerages out there, I'm not naming any names, that are proactively working their asses off to take the power back. They want to privatize things. They want to keep things off the grid. They need to make profit. And the only way to make profit is by driving your split down. So you have to remember at the end of the day, they work for you. And if they're not working for you, then you need to find someplace else where they are going to work for you. And what I mean by work for you is empower you to operate in a dramatically different fashion. If what they're offering you is a bunch of technology or things to go do more stuff with, that's not development. That's not engagement. That's not help. So, Jeff, I look at the hope and the light at the end of the tunnel is this. If we as an agent, if 90% of all real estate sold last year was sold by only 10% of the licensed agents, which is a fact, if that's the case, how do we take those 10% and the people that are just outside of that 10%? And how do we empower them to say, great, all of the marketing tactics, all of the, Buffini stuff, all those things, yeah, all the pie giveaways and the shredding event that I'm holding and my gift to you that has my logo on it, because yeah, clearly that's not a gift anymore. That's called marketing, right? Like, I love you. Here's my branding, all that stuff, right? Let the 90% that aren't doing shit enjoy all of that. Let them go have fun with all that stuff. Ask yourself one simple question every single day. Is what I'm doing the exact same thing as everybody else? And if the answer is yes, stop doing it. Right? And if you're posting on social media, as an example, and the posts that you're putting out on social media are focused on displaying things that you care about in terms of real estate, stop.
Yeah.
Why? We just saw this a while back ago. It was amazing. The real estate industry posts 12 times more on social media than marketing companies combined.
I believe that.
12 times more than companies whose jobs it is to market stuff. Yeah. So we've got to get much, much better at going back into the community, go back into the spaces and places. And so you said before, and I love what you said too, of the whole, like, we need to get back to basics. No, we just need to simplify. We need to simplify the root of what it is, because at the end of the day, we are invested and involved at the third most stressful time of a human being's life, right behind death and job loss, with the single largest financial asset that most people have. My job is to be basically a really glorified emotional support animal in a lot of ways, and partial therapist without prescribing, that I have the ability to help you navigate a process. And we have to get back to helping people understand that's the functional role that we play. But how do we do that without conflict? How do we give people freedom of choice? Because if you're going out there going, I'm the residential town expert, you need me, I'm going to help you price your house. No, you're not, because they don't want experts. They don't want you to be a pricing guru for them. Why? Because they already have a number in their head. No matter what you say, you're going to create conflict. We've got to get away from that stuff to simply say, I'm here to advocate, right? I'm here to be an advisor. I'm here to be a partner with you in this process. Because that was the most common word in all of the consumer surveys and panels and workshops that I do. The most common word when you ask them, what are you looking for in an agent, buyer or seller? Partnership.
Partner. Not somebody who's who's going to tell me what to do.
Nope. They don't want those experts anymore, because they have access to the internet. They think they're experts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So where does someone, so somebody listening to this who, is potentially just agreeing, saying, yeah, well, damn, yeah, you're right. You mentioned the technology, the tools not being the value or not being what it is that an agent should be looking for, what is?
Well, technology and tools are important. Don't get me wrong. Of course, I love a great CRM just like anybody else that helps simplify my life so I can do better things and I can reach out to certain people in certain ways. That's a definitive. But again, they all kind of have the same relative stuff at this point in time. Some better than others. A really great brokerage that's working as your ally and partner in something is finding ways to help entrench you back into the rehumanization of stuff. I see a couple of brokerages out there that are focused on certain things like, and I'll give an example. They do a lot of community work. The brokerage becomes a brand that's community facing, that's identifying different ways and spaces that they can have a presence within the community in a positive way that has nothing to do with, buying and selling stuff, right? If there's a Habitat for Humanity project going on, great, awesome, go volunteer in some of that stuff. There are brokerages out there right now that, believe it or not, I just saw one the other day. And again, I'm not advocating for A or B or, I don't have a horse in this race, but um, I saw one the other day that was focused on saying, hey, you know what? You don't have enough support as an agent, and it's not just tech. So we want to give you the support that you need to go be awesome at what you do and empower you to go do what you do really well. So because of that, we're giving you free healthcare, free dental, we're giving you free car washes, we're giving you literally free babysitting on the weekends so that you can go run an open house if you're a single parent and you need support. Like, these are all things that they are doing because they understand how difficult the role of an agent is. And to me, awesome. You understand what I'm doing. You're empowering me to go do what I do well. That is somebody working for me. Yeah. That's what we need to be looking at because, again, it's got to be more than this just constant stream of like, running for privatization. I mean, the things that I hear and see right now, it makes me sad because I wish agents had some of the insights that we're able to glean because folks like you and I, we get to work with so many different agents across a big swath and spectrum. And when you start seeing this at that 30,000 foot level, it's very obvious what's happening, right? And what's happening right now, more so than anything else, is brokerages are trying to reclaim that power back. They're trying to get back in control so that they become, again, profitable and become the major profit centers. So it's at the expense, unfortunately, of agents. All those articles that were written during that whole NAR thing, agent compensation, agent compensation. I tell agents this all the time. When people come up to me and they ask me, "Oh, Lance, what happened with all the lawsuits?" I'm like, "I don't know. It doesn't affect me." And they're like, "What do you mean? I just read in the Wall Street Journal that your commission is going down." I was like, "No, it's not. I didn't get sued. NAR got sued. The broker just got sued. Lance didn't get sued. Why? Because I'm not them. I'm not NAR. I have nothing to do with that dumpster fire of an organization. That's not who I am, right?" And I explain it to people in a really simple way. If the National Association of Dentistry got sued for crappy practices, do you stop going to your dentist? No. Now, if your dentist got sued for malpractice, yeah, you're going to go find a new dentist, right? I'm not associated with any of those things because I have ethics and I have a practice and I do the right thing by the people that I'm here to help. So it's just really more about us getting into simplifying the process and going right back at the communities and the places and spaces and doing it in a way that has differentiation. I don't want to miss this point because it's really important. I talk to consumers all the time because that's how I learn to best help the agents that I work with. And every single time, you will ask basic questions of them. Hey, did your agent explain what their fiduciary duty to you was? Huh? Did they explain what their fiduciary duty was? No. What is it? And then when I explain it, well, we all took the oath and we have fiduciary duty, very similar to like an attorney, for example, that my job is to, above everything else, protect your personal and financial best interest, particularly above my own. They're like, oh, do all agents have that? And I'm like, yeah. But the fact that no one talked to you about that or helped explain what that is, like,
Yeah.
These are little simplified things that, again, transcend and transform what people's perception of who we are and what we do is.
We're also an industry that chases shiny objects. We're chasing the next best thing. We're chasing the next lead. We get so commission breathed that we can't get out of our own damn way. So as it relates to this, understanding your consumer and truly understanding value, what are some of the piece of advice that you're giving to agents that are coming to you to say, okay. You mentioned the whole panel thing. So what should I do, Lance? I mean, I get it. I'm missing the boat, but what am I supposed to do? Just go into church tomorrow and ask everybody like, hey, like I want to pick your brain. Like, what should I do?
Y- yes. Absolutely yes. Believe it or not, I didn't develop the ways that I engage and work with people at all based off of just randomization. I sat and talked to people. And an important distinction here is don't, because everyone's like, oh, I talk to my past clients all the time. No, 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 not your past clients. You've already won with those people. You've developed trust. They like you. That's great. Awesome. We've got to start talking to people that we haven't worked with yet to ask them those questions. Church, awesome. Cocktail party, amazing. Right?
Grocery store?
Well, that might get weird. Depends on what aisle you're in. But, again, it's like any place that you have these spaces and places where you're meeting up with people or in camaraderie, like, if you play tennis, the local club or something, or golf, like ask those people that you're in and around to say, hey, really quickly, I just had a question for you. How many agents do you know? Like real estate agents do you know?
Yeah.
Hear what they say. They're like, oh, did they send you stuff? Like, I'm just curious because I'm trying to understand a little bit more about what people like and what they don't like. Oh, they do? Oh, do you open all that? Do you like all that? Oh, you hate that. It annoys the shit out of you. Oh, okay. Is there anything that you would get that you thought would be interesting? Right? Like these are questions that I legitimately ask people.
Yeah.
Right? When you're working with like if you had to use a real estate agent, like what would be important to you? I just literally questions and just understand. And when you start hearing people explain stuff to you, it's where I began to develop all of the talk tracks that I have, right? That I've learned to connect very quickly with people. So when people are like, "Oh, why should I work with you, Lance?" My answer is been the same for years. You ready? Because I'm the person you hire when you don't want to work with a real estate agent.
Hmm.
And they all laugh.
Mm.
And they're like, "What does that mean?" And then I start explaining the difference between me and other people.
Go on.
One of my primary points of differentiation is that I focus on, again, that Sherpa model of supporting you in a path and a process. I'm not coming in to tell you what to do. An example of that, agents are talking all the time about what their skills are. I'm a great negotiator. I'm a great negotiator. I'm one of the best negotiators out there. So I'm a great. Okay. You know, let's clarify one thing. Every one of us that got a real estate license, one of the very first things that it says on our real estate license is what? What are we legally not allowed to do? Negotiate on your behalf, right? In terms of for our own things, right? So why am I running around? That's what. So I don't do that. I focus on mediation. I'm an expert mediator because mediation is about how we bring you to where you want to go in the least amount of friction possible. Negotiation is a hostage crisis situation in which my opinions are getting thrust into something. And that's the problem. There's agents with a lot of ego out there that will blow up a great opportunity and a great deal for you to move to Boca where you said you want to go. Right.
Yeah.
Another big component of things I talk to about people that I've learned over the years. Marketing. My marketing. Agents, I always tell consumers this. If you meet with an agent to list your property, and the lion's share of what they focus on is their marketing, find somebody else because they have nothing for you. They got nothing. Why? Because we all have the same marketing. And I love sitting with people and saying, did you talk to somebody else? Oh, yes, I talked to them. And did they tell you about all their marketing? Yes. Oh, okay, great. Do you want to hear my marketing pitch to you? And they're like, sure, absolutely. Okay, fine. You told me, Jeff, that you wanted to move to Boca. When you were going to move to Boca, what did you use to go look? What's the most common answer given?
What? Car?
Zillow.
Oh,
Right?
I
You,
was
you
getting
go
real
look for
technical.
property. I
Okay,
was
yeah.
like, Zillow.
Yeah.
And I look at them deadpan and go, cool, my marketing presentation's done. Everybody's on the internet. They're going to go look for properties. They're going to find your property on one of the major aggregators, right? My job is to help you navigate a process. Why? But I could sit here and bore you with all my I'm going to leave the marketing stuff behind. Why? You don't need to hear about that. We all have the same stuff. You want a drone? I can get a drone. We have great photography. We've got great this.
So let me ask you though. So as you're saying that, so I'm thinking as a marketing guy,
Mhm.
because I do talk about this, and the same thing I tell agents is like you got to find out ways to differentiate because everybody's going in with the same 25-point marketing presentation.
Right.
So let me ask you if I'm off base here, but
Mhm.
I don't when because we all know that marketing typically really doesn't sell a property anyway.
Right.
Marketing is makes the consumer feel good
Mhm.
because their property's out there. But at the end of the day, what I would tell somebody, and I actually use this with agents that I work with is that I can't promise you more leads. I can't promise you I'm going to get you a buyer for your home, but I can promise you more eyeballs. I can promise you more attention on your piece of property, which increases the opportunities that might be presented in front of us. And so is that where you're going with this, or am I off base?
No, I don't think you're off base. I think that I would just tweak it slightly, because at the end of the day, the very first thing I need somebody to understand from my world is marketing is only as effective as your pricing is. If your pricing is way off, all of the greatest marketing in the world doesn't matter at that point in time anymore. So for me, it's pricing first. Then when I discuss marketing, what I want them to understand is quality of presentation, because the number of eyeballs that we get, that's good, but how do I keep them? I have to have ways in the way that I'm describing and explaining to people how I'm going to keep them engaged in your property. So examples of that I do, and again, these are all things that I teach in my class and stuff like that, but it's like I do digital open houses. Other agents, what are they doing? They come in, they sign a piece of paper, it's chicken scratch, nobody can read it. And that, nope, I have a digital open house. People sign in digitally. Why? Because again, behavioral psychology, you're 12 times more likely to actually give factual information when you have to type it rather than write it. It's a fact, because people think it's going to reject them. It's kind of funny.
Interesting.
But I do that. Then I do a follow-up with them. And then 48 hours later, I look to see who opened it, how many times they opened it. Did they forward it to anybody? And then from there, I re-engage with those people again. Right. So I'm doing targeted things that, again, the marketing portion of things that I'm doing, again, I need to be doubling into in the right places and spaces. So it's really important for me that when you think about marketing a property, you're 100% right. It's to make them feel good. But I need them to also understand eyeballs should equal just as much as length of time. It's like why I'm a huge fan of Matterport. And I love talking to agents about when they do Matterport stuff, because I was like, I don't like Matterport. It makes me dizzy. And I'm like, it's not for you. You're not the person using it. Consumers really like it. In fact, platforms like that, where they have the ability to spend time in a digital platform, right? They have 6 times the length of time on engagement versus photos or tours, which is just a slideshow, right? So it's about thinking about how to your point, like, how do I get those eyeballs? And then how do I expand that process? I must have said something good, because you're writing something down, which means it's something either horrible or brilliant. I don't know.
No. It's not for you. And again, I run into this. I just ran into this also the other day, because it's funny, and I'm going to digress for a second. I was thinking to myself when you were answering my question about how to engage with more consumers. Of course, my inclination is immediately, I'm kind of mocking myself when I say go to church, go to the grocery store, because for me, I've found a way more efficient way to connect with more people is through social. And most of you are listening to this, I'm pointing to the social behind me, because you can go into your socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, ask a question, get responses, which is the gold that you want and need, but then you can take that response and do a video reply to create more content. Now you're speaking directly to the consumers, and they're listening to you, and they're even seeing you responding to the question because you're using the technology to do it. But to that point, and going back to what I was writing down, was it's not for you, because I all the time, because of course I'm a big advocate for video. And you know what most agents, not most, a lot of agents tell me? I don't like watching videos. That's why I don't create videos. And I just want to like throw something again. I want to throw my phone against the wall. I'm like, idiot. Like,
yeah. But those are the same people that'll tell you, but I'm having a shredding event next week, and there's going to be a clown and a pony. And I'm like, we are in 2024. Who the hell is shredding anything? Stop it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, and just so I can touch on something you said, because I again, that to me is differentiation in marketing, right? Because if you're able to explain to somebody, it's not about the photography, and it's not about, you'll be in the Beijing Times and all the, nonsensical stuff. It's what I'm going to be able to do is present something in a way that then again builds the length of time that eyeballs are actually going to be in and around what you're doing on your property. And, one of my clients does a really good job of new property comes on. She took an idea that I had and then she expanded it further, and it worked really, really well. So I used to take pictures inside someone's house of like really specific, cool little things right during my initial conversation with them. And I explained, Once we sign a contract, while we're waiting to get the property ready, I'm going to start dripping out some of these with, I've got a great property coming on soon. Love the mantle on this fireplace. It looks super cool. Hey, these fire engine red knobs on this Viking stove on the new property coming up soon is amazing. Now, I'm not violating anything because I'm not showing pictures of the house or pre-market. I'm not doing any of that. But I'm building momentum and enthusiasm in and around this idea of what's coming. Well, she took that and went one step further because there were certain upgrades and enhancements they were making to the house. So she would then start posting things to say, hey, we're going to repaint the front door to try and make it look a little bit nicer. Here's 3 color swatches. Tell me right now which one you like the most and why. And people started responding back in. And then she would go through and show the final product of the door, right? And then she increased it by having, and it was a genius idea. She started doing really cool raffles for people that would respond back into it. So it was a really smart way to, again, build momentum in and around some of the really great ways to use social to keep people engaged. And what was awesome was what she was raffling off was actually part of a nonprofit organization, a charity that she was a part of. And so it was Make-A-Wish Foundation. They were running an event. It was a table for, it was great. You know, it was like community engagement. So to your point, it's about helping people understand how you are different. Those points of differentiation that really separate you from the person that comes in with the 28-page marketing thing of, you know, my brokerage is, you know, we're in the Beijing Times and we're, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's like, nobody gives a shit anymore. Like, they just don't care.
Yeah. 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 Dude, there's so many places we could go with this and so many places I wish we could go with this. I mean, and I want to get back to just understanding the consumer, which is things like sitting down at a listing presentation and rather than 25-point marketing presentation, let me tell you about all the things I know and how smart I am and how I've sold so many houses, and getting back to what we're going to say, getting back to the basics of just having a conversation with a consumer, conversation 101, aka asking questions, aka getting to know them, aka not even talking about real estate, but just kind of giving them those feels, which if you are good at that, they're going to give you all the indicators of the things that are important to them and that matter to them, which will likely land you the listing. And you didn't say squat about what you're going to do to sell the house.
100%. Do you want me to respond to that? Because that was perfectly said.
I mean, yeah, from a psychological, because you know, behavioral stuff and psychology. And yeah, I'd love to hear your take on that.
People want 4 things. Okay. All people want 4 things. They want to be loved, appreciated, heard, and understood. Any combination thereof. My job every time I sit with somebody is to try and at least make sure I'm touching on one of those things, if not multiple ones. Because at the end of the day, when you sit with someone to talk to them about their property, there's a history there, there's a life there, there's feelings there, there's emotions there, there's all kinds of stuff. We're going to be discussing finances, we're going to be doing all kinds of stuff, right? And at a certain point, when we start thinking about all these different parts and pieces and things, you know, if I'm not investing in learning and understanding where they're at from an emotional standpoint, I've already lost. I missed the mark. Most of what I tell people in those initial points of the conversation are about understanding from them. And I treat them like buyers. Where are you going next? What are you looking forward to? What excites you about that? Did you see anything that you like? Because I want them to be in a different mind state, and I want them to be thinking about the good things that are coming next. And if it's an unfortunate situation, it's a divorce, I want them to also be thinking about the fact that I'm there as a support individual. Again, not choosing side, but to be able to help understand how we can move on to the best part of what's coming next in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like so many agents get so few opportunities to make a commission that rather than doing their business a service, they do it an injustice by immediately getting just super aggressive, thinking that's what they have to do to win the sale. When really, if you don't really make it about that, you're probably going to increase the likelihood of landing more clients exponentially.
Well, and that's the point of building confidence. It's like, you know, in my Sherpa Model program, it's, you know, I changed it. I don't do listing presentations anymore. We have a seller's guide. It's a guide. It's a workbook that we have that we work together And it's a way for me to demonstrate points of differentiation. And in addition to that, show you there's a path and a process. I'm here to support you in that path and process. That in and of itself is vastly different than what someone's sitting there, because I don't need, look, this is our own fault. Agents come into all of these conversations from a place of fear. There's no guarantee. You may not get to have another conversation. You need to keep the lights on. You've got to feed your family. It is an incredibly difficult space and place to be in, right?
Yeah.
It's scary. And so if you're going into that conversation with people from a place of fear, and if there's some anxiety, many agents have a tremendous fear of disappointing others. It's a major component that exists within real estate currently. When you have a fear of disappointing other people, you're constantly in this chameleon mode of changing yourself to figure out, how do I accommodate what you want, what you need? And what that does is actually not only devalue the work that you do, but it puts you in a position to build resentment, to have burnout, and it puts you in a position to have those people not respect the work that you do. I go in, I'm confident. Here's what I'm amazing at. Here's what I love doing. I'm here to help and support. If that works, great. If I'm not for you, great. You just freed me up to go find 99,000 other people that are out there that are thinking of buying and selling.
And what you just said is where we are at in this industry, where I don't know if you meant it that way, but people don't respect what we do. They don't respect what agents do anymore, and they think perception is just so off. And again, I think part of it's because of the spamming nature of our industry, but I also think some of it's got to do with shitty marketing. And I shouldn't say shitty. That's a bad way to say it, because like an agent who is dancing down the street doing a music parody video, it's wildly entertaining and creative, although I think it's given the wrong perception to a consumer.
This is my favorite one. If I see one more video of someone walking around and asking questions of their team, as if they were like impromptu. Hey, Becky, what's the best book you've read this month? Oh, it's blah, blah. Hey, Sandy, what's the best book you've read this month? I'm like, oh, my, just shoot me. Like at a certain point, that it's got to stop. Like, you are a human being. We are human beings. We have things about us that I think we're not doing a great job of presenting out there about things that we care about. This perception, I don't like office meetings. I don't like sales meetings. You know, I don't like sales meetings because sales meetings are as fake as the day is long. It's like going to the Oscars. Everybody gets all dressed up. Everybody shows up. Everybody's having the best time ever. Everybody's winning at life. Everybody's got the best deal. And I'm putting this on. I'm putting that on. It's all great. You leave feeling like shit most of the time, right? I don't like that environment or that culture because it's not healthy for anybody. You don't have somebody agent put their hand up in the middle of a sales meeting and be like, hey, by the way, my wife is leaving me and I spent the weekend in the bathtub in the fetal position, butt naked, sobbing with my hand in a Pringles jar. Like nobody, you don't hear that, but that's the reality of what's going on. And that's what social media is. We've got to stop treating this industry amongst each other as an extension of the current state of social media. It's all about what I'm winning at. I don't know about you. Most of the folks that I talk to right now, the good, successful agents that are doing well, they're not exactly feeling flush with cash these days and winning, right?
Yeah.
The market's down. So it's just about getting back into those core concepts of basic things of how do we rehumanize what we do with people and call it for what it is. I beg agents, call it for what it is. This idea that exists in real estate, we cannot speak poorly of each other. We cannot. I'm sorry, you work in a business where 90% of all the transactions are done by only 10% of the 1.6 million licensed agents. Why? Because the National Association of Realtors is more concerned with lining their own pockets by creating a system in which, by the way, if you can fog a mirror, you're a realtor.
Yeah.
Because they make their money off of people joining them. And they also have that as a whole separate problem. We need to take our shit back at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, that ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen, but with all the trouble they're in, who knows what's gonna happen to that
Yeah.
organization, that dumpster fire organization, as you described it. Okay, so let's kind of recap because we're coming up on the hour. Where is a great place? You kind of gave several tips along the way here, and I feel like a lot of this has been obviously very conversational, and I've directed it the things that I know about, but obviously there's a lot of really just reshifting and reshaping the way our industry thinks. And I think when you're talking about the light at the end of the tunnel, I also look at it the way I present it is the light at the end of the tunnel is simply that there's a lot of opportunity for those that are willing to think outside the box. So are you going to be one of those people, right? And so if for the person who's sitting here like just flabbergasted by this conversation, I mean, how do you advise them? Where do you tell them to go from here?
Do you? Do you? That what you just described was really well said, because the industry is a dumpster fire. I'm not. I still hold value to what I do with people. I love getting up every morning and knowing that my job is to try and be of useful purpose and service to others. I try to maintain that. That is what I do. That's what brings me joy, and that's what I love doing. I don't really care what the hell's happening with the rest of the bullshit and R and on the industry and the lawsuits. What I care about is, am I getting up every day? And are my feet hitting the floor? And am I actually able to do what is one of the hardest things in the world there is to do? And that is to be a real estate agent. It is. And I do that by helping other people. Focus on service, acts of service. Focus on being engaged more in your community. Focus on becoming a part of the solution by what you do and how you hold yourself, by pointing, literally pointing out what is broken. It is broken. It doesn't serve consumers. It does not serve consumers, right? Help people understand that's not me. I'm not them. That's not what I'm doing. This is how I handle myself. This is the best way that I can engage with you, right? Because I'm a partner with you in this process, and I love doing that with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then let me just kind of bring that back to the forefront. Not only saying it, that you're a partner, but actually acting the part.
Doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge, man. That's huge. I love this conversation, man. I feel like you and I could have a strategy session and just rap about all the different ways to differentiate, because that's
Totally.
exactly the way I think the way I describe it is our industry's monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. And again, social has really just shown a brighter light on that, because you see what the algorithm is designed to show you,
Mm-hmm.
and you think, oh shit, they're doing it, I got to do it. And so we all rush to do it without actually thinking, does this make any sense? Does this is
Right.
right? Does it even help my business? And so what part of what I hear you telling me is, and this is how I'm interpreting it, is that, and I think you said this at one point, but like when I see my industry doing it one way,
Mm-hmm.
I need to immediately think, okay, I'm not going to do that,
Right.
and go 180 degrees the opposite direction.
That's right. 110%. If everybody's doing a listing presentation, do something different.
Yeah.
Right. If every person that you know is doing whatever mailers and all that stuff, challenge that. Ask yourself, what can I do that's not that? What can I do to done? And listen, anytime you want to have a brainstorming session, I love a good brainstorming session.
Yeah,
So I got
that'd be fun.
we have some good ideas that come out and engage differently.
We definitely should. The other one you didn't bring up was the billboard. I did a post on this once where there's a mile and a half stretch at the Lake of the Ozarks, a place where actually I have a bunch of influence. What I'm doing exactly what we're talking about,
Mm,
and there's like 15 billboards in a 1.5 mile stretch, and I'm like, if this doesn't exemplify the just how horrible we are at marketing, like at what point does it make you stop and think, ooh, that's a good idea? Like it's just absolutely moronic. But then again,
right.
I look at that and say, what a bunch of idiots. I'm going to steal all their business. I'm
Yeah,
just going to market differently the way they're not different, because they thought Sally has one. I got to have one.
that's right.
And not
That's
to
right.
think to themselves, the consumers driving down the street, first of all, they're not paying attention anyway. And if they are paying attention, they're probably laughing to themselves about how many freaking like, who's going to drive down that street and say, ooh, let's just throw darts and see which one we hit,
Yeah.
Never.
It's by the way, that you just said there's a billboard, but what were the other billboards? Because chances are it was like, si usted se ha caído, se puede call a lawyer 1-800. It's like that one
Yeah.
followed then by the agent, followed by got Jesus, followed by like another. It's just like all the stuff. You just lumped yourself in with a bunch of, used car salespeople and ambulance chasers. It's like, give me a break.
And nobody does that. It just drives me absolutely bonkers, man.
Well, but that's the thing. Like you just said, I would encourage and challenge agents that are hearing this podcast, reach out to Jeff, talk about the different ways that you can engage and be different. If it's being done a particular way, screw the system. It's not working anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like we have this phenomenal track record all of a sudden of great, ethical behavior. And everyone's like, well, I'm not that. You might not be, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
Find the cool ways to go out there. I guarantee you there's a social campaign that you could put out called I'm Not That.
Yeah.
You just run that cool ass campaign called I'm Not That.
100%.
I used to love putting out on my social media on Tuesdays. I would do my parenting fail of the week because I had just gotten married.
Yeah.
I was a stepdad to 2 kids. I had no idea what I was doing. Like I literally had no idea what I was doing. Right. And every Tuesday I'd put out like, here's my epic parenting fail of the week. That got the most traction with the most engagement because it was real. This is my life.
Relatable. So relatable.
My life, man. My wife's throwing Cheerios in a toilet to help the kid aim to pee on them. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, the dog tried to eat them out. I was like, this is a nightmare. Like, what did I get myself into? Like, is this a thing? Right. But that's the reality of life. That's the fun part of it.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. So I tell you what, how does somebody connect with you, man? If somebody says, God, I love this guy. I look how he thinks. I want more of him. What's the best way to do so?
You can reach out lancependleton.com. You can go to lancependleton.com. All my stuff's on there. My email's on there. My phone numbers are on there. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I've got a podcast coming out in a couple of weeks called Consumed, in which we're talking about consumers and what consumers want and need and all, because I spend my whole life talking to people to understand this to best help agents. So those are the best 2 ways. And then I run that Sherpa program to help people just build a little bit simpler of a connection and an easier way with people on that end too. But most importantly, man, thank you, man. You didn't have to have me on this thing. I know I was some guy that just emailed you, but I'd heard all the stuff you were doing. We have a mutual friend in common that speaks so highly of you. And I love the work all that Lab Coat agents are doing. I cannot thank enough for making the time to spend a little bit of time with me here and talk about some of this stuff. And I can't wait to learn from you too a little bit.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. Last question. Where do they find you on social?
Where do they find me on social? It's Lance Pendleton. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, and just plug in my name and I'll pop up everywhere.
Awesome. I challenge everyone with that question because you got to be there. Lance, it's been a pleasure, dude. This is fun. We'll definitely have to reconnect because I love these conversations. It's refreshing, and the industry needs to hear more of it. And I think that the thing I would say too is you got to. I think a lot of people struggle with that creativity. And okay, I get what you're saying, but I don't know how to be different. I see the billboards, but I don't know what to do differently. I see the content, but I don't know what to do different. And I think that is the biggest challenge that a lot of agents face, and that's what they got to figure out. Go ahead and finish with that.
I'm just going to give you my favorite, and this is literally my mantra that I live by. You ready? Mm-hmm. All wisdom is plagiarism. Only stupidity is original. Amen. You are not hearing anything from me that is some great cosmic wisdom on my part. I've been blessed to literally everything I have in my life is because of somebody else. I've been very, very lucky. My job is to take the things that I've learned from other people over the years and just put them together in a way that makes things a little bit easier for other people to engage and understand. But to what you just said is so important, right? It is, let us help you with that, right? That's what Lab Coat Agents is all about. Let us help you with the creativity. You don't need to be creative. You just need to be able to pull some of the best stuff from other people. So use Lab Coat Agents to be able to figure out how you can be more creative in your social.
That's a great piece of advice. Just plagiarize more often.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome, brother. This has been great, man.
Thanks, man.
We'll definitely stay in touch.
Good to see you.
Lab Coat Agents Podcast.